hear from two more witnesses in the Lindsay Clancy trial today before closing arguments begin. Things took a dramatic turn yesterday with the judge denying the defense team's request for a mistrial. As CBS News correspondent Shanelle Kaul explains, it happened after a witness for the prosecution brought up religion.
Well, the big headline yesterday was Kevin Reddington, Lindsay Clancy's defense attorney, calling for a mistrial yesterday over what he said was religious testimony. This happened not once, but twice during this weeks-long murder trial here in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Here's more.
The fact that this is not the first time that it occurred during the trial, and the prosecution has previously brought up the concept of mortal sin, based on your ruling in the past, in conjunction with the fact that they brought it up again, I believe it was intentional misconduct, and I feel that the court should grant a motion for mistrial.
The judge very quickly rejected that request for a mistrial, but he did reprimand the prosecutors. And when the jurors came back in the room, he told them that that testimony yesterday in question that touched on the topic of religion was not to be used as evidence in this case when they eventually deliberate. Now, before all of that happened, we did hear some interesting and opposing testimony from two expert witnesses that prosecutors had called to the stand as part of their rebuttal. One of them began testifying on Friday and then wrapped up yesterday. He had said that in his evaluation of Lindsay Clancy, she was not going through postpartum psychosis the night of the tragedy. He diagnosed her as somebody who was going through a major depressive episode and said he found no signs of mania. The second expert witness to take the stand, who was also called by prosecutors, agreed that there was no evidence of mania in Lindsay Clancy, but he diagnosed her with bipolar II. We'll hear more from him today on the witness stand in Plymouth, Massachusetts, before Kevin Reddington will have a chance to cross-examine him. After that's over, prosecutors will have a chance to bring one more expert witness to the stand before closing arguments get underway. Back to you.
Shanelle Kaul, thank you so much. Attorney and legal analyst Joe Tamburino joins us right now. Joe, thank you for your time. Can you talk to us more about the precedence of religion being brought up in a trial like this?
Well, thank you for having me on. The judge is correct. Religion has no part in a trial. It was completely wrong for that witness, Dr. Heilburn, to mention religion, to mention the mortal sin. And it was correct for the defense to ask for a mistrial. Now, in the end, the judge didn't grant the mistrial, and that's probably because there was no direct tie to what's called prosecutorial misconduct. But clearly, this is something that the jury should not be concerned with.
But how do you say it's something the jury should not be concerned with? How do you think the jury will view all of this, though?
Well, unfortunately, even when a judge says to a jury, look, you shouldn't consider certain things that were said from the witness stand, jurors are human beings, so they could put it in the back of their minds and maybe subconsciously use it during their deliberations. That is always the danger when something gets blurted out in court that shouldn't have happened. However, if the jury follows the instructions of just looking at the evidence and not considering things that the judge said to disregard, then the trial should still be a fair trial.
And Joe, from your experience, what message do you think the two legal teams, both sides, will try to get across as we reach closing arguments?
Well, the state is going to have a bit of an uphill battle because, as you have just reported, their two experts, or the two experts that they have called thus far, have disagreements over what the diagnosis is. Yes, they both agree that she's not insane, so to say, but they disagree as to whether there's psychosis and bipolar. So the state's going to have a bit of an uphill battle. However, on the defense side, the defense is clearly going to argue that she was not capable of understanding her actions, that legally she was not capable of being guilty of these crimes. And they're going to use the disagreement between the two state prosecutors as well as their own witness, Dr. Resnick, in order to buttress their argument for insanity.
Wow. Okay. Joe Tamburino, appreciate your insight today. Thank you.
Thank you.
And a reminder for you, CBS News 24/7 will follow the trial all day and bring you updates from court. We'll also bring you the closing arguments live as soon as they start. So make sure to get the free CBS News app.